This came out of a partnership that was created between the University of Calgary, Boyle Street Community Services, Bent Arrow Traditional Healing Society, and Child and Family Services, Edmonton Region. I was here at Bent Arrow to do some research. So basically what came out of this was something called Practice as Ceremony. And so it's not a method of practice. It's not a framework. It's old knowledge that has been passed down to us from generation to generation to generation. It's not mine. I didn't create that. It's just simply something that just kind of came through, and I was like, hey, this is what y'all do. You are practicing in ceremony. And so the basis of that is really about those sacred relationships. How do we facilitate, encourage, and create space for our families and for the people that work with our families to have those sacred relationships that are built on reciprocity, that are built on love, that are built on, trust, and I mean, the list goes on, right? And this is where it goes back to those teachings of our ceremonies. So that's kind of the foundation of where Practice as Ceremony kind of derived from. And then of course it's just grown, regardless of where you come from. Doesn't matter race, color, or creed, that you can still have sacred and ceremonial relationships with the people that you work with. You could be of Catholic faith. You could identify as an atheist. You could, have any other type of spirituality or faith background. And we weren't interested in changing who you were. That's not what we're interested in. We're not interested in telling you, you need to follow this way. We're more interested in making culture safe for everybody. We hear, foster parents or folks who work with our family service providers not understanding who we are in the first place. Because oftentimes we learn about Indigenous people, through the lens of colonization only, right? We learn about the intergenerational trauma, we learn about residential schools, 60 scoop, et cetera, which is all really good learning. But we don't learn about who we were before that, because we were a people before that. We were here for thousands of years prior to that. And so we have such a beautiful history, and we have ceremonies and language that also should be taught. And so, again, while it's important for us to learn about, our pain, it's also really important to learn about our resilience. The premise, or again, the kind of foundation of Practice as Ceremony is really about, when we go into our lodges, and when we go in, and if I'm going to seek supports from our spiritual grandmothers and grandfathers and the Creator, I go in with intent, and I come to you, and I will ask you for what it is that I'm seeking. Whether it's clarity, strength, the list goes on. I come to you with humility and understanding that I need someone to support me. I need help. And so we oftentimes will view our service users, the people that are coming to us, they're not coming to us voluntarily a lot. They're coming to us involuntary, right? They don't really want to be in our lives. They don't want to be in a social worker's life. But they're still coming to us with intent and with prayer. Oftentimes our families need help with parenting. They need some support in their healing journeys with trauma management. And so again, whether they're coming to us voluntary or not, they're still coming with that intent of wanting to be good parents and to really, keep their families together. And so again, foundationally, we have people that come to us. So when I walk into a lodge and I'm saying to you, I need help, and I give you my offering and I tell you what I need, our parents are doing that too. Our families are doing that too. And so your role as a service provider is to ensure that I am seen, heard, and validated, to ensure that me and my children, that our collective prayer is being heard, and people will tell you what they need, sometimes not directly, but they'll tell you what they need. And so our role is to create that sacred, safe space where I can, where I feel safe and comfortable, telling you about what I need. And the rest of the work happens, in spaces much bigger and more powerful than you and I. We facilitate that relationship. Your role as a service provider is to, again, create that space that allows for families to discover and dig up really deep roots. And the rest is facilitated or we're helped by, again, a world, a realm that is so much more powerful than we are. So in order for you and I to work together, and in order for you and I to have that sacred relationship, and if your practice was ceremonial, and if your practice was sacred, again, you would consistently and constantly be creating spaces for me to be safe in understanding what my role is. And of course, there's prayer involved in that. Of course, there's, all types of teachings that are involved in that as well. But really, the foundation is that regardless of race, color, or creed, you and I can have a sacred relationship where you're not feeling like, your culture is being shoved down my throat. The last thing I would say is that while our lodges are absolutely those places that we can go. You see the teepees set up here. We have our sacred pipes. We have our ways of knowing and doing and being. We also understand with practice as ceremony that if our families are not there yet, if they're not at that place where they can go into our lodges because of anxiety, because of, maybe they've been taught that isn't the right thing to do, sitting down and having dinner with your family is ceremony. Playing with your kids is ceremony. Hugging your children is ceremony. There's a space in your home that is a sacred space. And in my opinion, as a mother and as a woman, that is the most sacred space. And so helping our families develop that ceremonial sacred space in their homes is of utmost importance. Again, this isn't new information. This is old. This is ancient. So Bent Arrow has taken that old way of doing or being or practicing and created a whole program around it. So Bent Arrow now has a practices ceremony team and program where there are folks who are specifically, that's their job. Their job is to facilitate educational sessions. They work with families in this kind of model, this culture camp, lots of other programs that have been developed since that. And so Bent Arrow has really taken a new kind of, again, this is old information, old teachings that belong to all of us. But that no one created. They're taking this and changing the way that they do things, or adding to, how they have done things. And so there's a whole practices ceremony team at Bent Arrow with the Kakio program that can help, guide people as to what does this mean? What does this look like in my everyday practice? What does this look like in my daily life? What does this look like when I work with families? And so there are folks here who are doing the work. Again, it's a way of just being, right? And so I think that because it's a way of being, the interpretation happens within you. And so when practices ceremony is gifted to you, when you are, taught, kind of these foundational things, you as a human being on your journey get to internalize that and say, what does this mean for me? And it's going to look different for everybody. It's not a cookie cutter type of practice model, right? This isn't a one size fits all practice model. This is, much like a lot of the models that we have out in practice, people take the policy, they internalize, make sense of it, and then practice it. much like Practice's ceremony. And so you and I might have very different understandings of what Practice's ceremony is, but that's because we've had different lived experience, and that's fair. So it's going to look different to a lot of, to everyone, really.